Hey, welcome to another episode of Collection Wars, our great Collection War family. What's up, Michael?
Hello there.
There you go.
How's it going, buddy?
Good. I'm really excited about tonight. I'm
Mhm.
really looking forward to our guest, Tim, and talking to him about so many cool things. So, uh,
Absolutely. Yeah, Tim. I was able to meet up with this guy midweek, and one of his friends, Mr. Perry, reached out on Instagram and connected us, and I'm so glad that he did. And we've got so much in common, like a lot of us Star Wars guys, and his passion goes on a whole other level, and he's done so many great things for the community when it comes to going in and creating these little small Star Wars stories. There's so many Star Wars films, fan made Star Wars films that have been out there. This one here is
yeah,
respectfully like
another
you're
level.
genuinely thinking that this is a Lucasfilm release, and I'm very proud of him. There's so much for me, a director coming in and
Yeah.
directing, and it's not easy. All the collaboration and raising the funds and everything. It's not easy. And a big congrats to him. He's got a huge following. His first film well over 3 million views. It's crazy. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Even more than that. I think it was like 4 million. Then his news,
yep.
it's so cool. I wanted to show a quick little trailer, really quick of it, if you guys wouldn't mind. I know I posted, the links in the description, so hopefully you guys got to watch it before the show. But let me show you guys a little preview here, really quick, before we bring him on, so you can kind of see what this is about.
Captain's Hero Kai, Medal of Valor recipient for acts of conspicuous bravery at Yavin and Hoth. Man with your reputation should be feared in a place like this. My employer wants to hire you.
And who might that be?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Oh. Ah.
Yeah, it's
That
badass. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So it just released obviously a couple weeks ago, and it's already, making its rounds with the Star Wars fans, and it's just such amazing work. But not only that, but again, I think just Tim and his work, behind the scenes is also just such a cool yeah, just I would love to hear about it. So
Yeah, and like you're just saying, he isn't just a writer, director, producer, everything that goes into making a movie, a catering, and everything else. But he's like a lot of people that we have on our show, which are artists. This guy's an incredible artist, and some of the work that he's done actually on his own movies. I mean, this is legit stuff.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
guys know I'm pretty particular, and wow. But yeah, but yeah, let's bring Tim on, and I got all kinds of questions for him. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's bring him on.
yeah.
There
There
he
he
is.
is.
What's up, Tim? How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
What's up,
Good.
buddy?
Not much. Just
Good
chilling.
to see. Good to see you. Hey, dude, that gremlin. I've got a little gremlin thing going on at Darkside at the restaurant. I'm trying to have a bunch of those things hanging off of the bar. Man, I love that piece.
Yeah, I've got like 5 of those. I put them around my Christmas tree.
Nice. Is
Yeah.
that a NECA? Is that one of the NECA ones or Trick or Treat?
It's Trick or Treat Studios. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got the Bandit coming with this.
Yeah. Of course, I repainted all of them. Teeth,
Yeah.
new balls, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's badass.
Yeah.
Very
No,
good.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us and hanging out with us. We just played a little preview of Sands of Fate, for our viewers, so they can kind of see the level of work that you're doing. But before we chat about that, I'd love to ask you just like all our guests here, tell us your story, your Star Wars story. Like as a kid, what got you into Star Wars? What what made you fall in love with Star Wars?
Well, I was born in the mid 70s, so I was too young to watch Star Wars in the theater, but I do remember watching Empire at a drive-in, and
Nice.
I was about 6, I think, when Empire came out, maybe 5. My birthday's in September, so I was probably 5 when it was released. But it was, it's the darkest of all the Star Wars movies, and that just had such a great impact on me when I was a kid. Like I didn't understand what was going on. It's like, did Luke Skywalker get his head cut off with the Darth Vader reveal and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
When he ends up in the tunnels and he fights Darth Vader, it's very serious tone, very dark. So that was my introduction to Star Wars. And of course, since then, that's always been my favorite film out of all of them, has been Empire. And growing up in the 80s, I'm just a huge monster fan. I love Star Wars. I love Alien, all the stuff that came out in the 80s. So I was an artist early on. Both of my parents were actually pretty good artists, although my dad was in the Army and my mom was a legal secretary. I've just been drawing since I was a kid, and I finally picked up some clay and started sculpting when I was, I think, 15. So I've just been doing it ever since. So eventually I found out, hey, you can make a living doing this. So
Yeah. So tell us about that. So what kind of got you into the industry? What sparked your interest into, getting into making
well,
stuff?
I had a varying degree of jobs out of high school. I worked at the state attorney's office in Florida for 2 years. And after 2 years, I decided I need to do something with my artwork. So I got a job in Florida doing theme park stuff. Mainly, it was just all styrofoam, a lot of styrofoam sculpture. And then I did that for like a year and decided, well, at the time I'm like 23, and the only way to do it is just to get up and go do it. So I packed up all my stuff, and my girlfriend at the time and a couple of friends, we just packed up and moved to LA. No jobs, no connections, no apartment, nothing. And just had to scramble. This is obviously pre-internet. This is 99, before everybody had a cell phone even, because we used walkie-talkies on the way out, So I just started beating on doors, showing my portfolio at the time, which is laughable now. But it's such a small community in the makeup effects business that eventually I ran into some people that were like, oh, you're new in town, we'll give you a shot. Usually I worked in the mold departments first, because like the art departments, the sculpting departments, and the special makeup effects world is so competitive. And you're dealing with guys like Steve Wang and Matt Rose, and these guys have been around for years. Norman Cabrera was from Florida. He'd been out here since the 80s. But all these guys are still, aside from Matt, who unfortunately has passed away a couple years ago. But that's kind of the only way you get out of this business is you die. Nobody leave this business, so you're competing with the same guys. But so when I worked at the first couple shops as a mold maker, I just kept honing my craft and kept sculpting and kept practicing and kept bugging people and showing my portfolio until somebody said, okay, here's a small thing and there's a small thing. And then over the years, over some time, I ended up being the lead artist at Amalgamated Dynamics for a couple of years, ADI for short. And that was the studio that I got the opportunity to design Rodan for Godzilla King of the Monsters. That was 2018, I think, that I worked on that. But that was, I'm very proud of that particular project, because that was my clay sculpture was the only thing anyone had done in clay. Everyone was doing ZBrush by that time. So Michael Doherty, the director, liked my design, and they of course took my sculpture, and it was digitized and it was colored, and it was 95% of what I sculpted is actually the character in the film. It's long story short, my love of monsters and all things like that is what I decided to pursue, and here I am.
That's awesome, man. And so besides that, I know I was looking through through your Instagram and your history. It sounds like you eventually started working also with Stan Winston, right? And Legacy Effects as well, right? For
So it was one of the first places that actually gave me an opportunity, and I worked in the mold shop because fortunately at that time in 99, the industry was still very busy, and it was hard to find good people to fill these spaces, especially if you had a couple big shows at one studio. And Stans was working on several shows at one time. We were working on AI and Jurassic Park 3 at the same time. So they just needed as many hands as they could get. So I slipped in the door in the mold shop there, and eventually over time got to once Stan had passed away in 2008, his son had started the Stan Winston School of Character Arts, which I've done several tutorials on. So I teach through them, got to know the guys at Stan's over the years. And then when it became Legacy Effects, I'd worked there several times as a sculptor and artist, mostly on a lot of the Star Wars shows. Started off with, Mandalorian, trickled into Book of Boba Fett. I'm trying to think of, I think it was mostly Mandalorian I worked at Legacy, but I've also done some stuff independently at home through like the head of makeup at Disney Lucasfilm down in Huntington Beach. So sometimes, like, especially during COVID when things were kind of squirrely, I did a couple things from home, which was cool.
Hey, Tim, I know a few of the artists that we've had on the show, we've heard a lot of their story like yours. And I've noticed that through your artist, even some of the modelers, Gabe, it's feast or famine. And I hear that sometimes when you guys are busy, you're super busy. And then sometimes it's like they lose the love, right? It's like, what am I going to do? I'm going to find my next job. That's got to be really tough for an artist.
That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I haven't worked at one of the big studios since I left KMB about 2 years ago. I had my own shop with a partner for about a year, and that fell apart mainly because of the strikes that happened. Right. So the strikes, it stops the entire industry. It's not just actors. Although I'm in SAG as a puppeteer, but I never worked so regularly that was my, day-to-day bread and butter. It was never like that. But when the strikes happen, the writers and the actors strike, everything shuts down. The whole, like all of Southern California,
I've heard that quite a bit. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So is sculpting your favorite thing to do, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm terrible at computers, as you guys already know.
No,
it's funny. I always ask some of these artists like you that are like, we have a good friend of ours, David Boudreau. He does a lot of stuff for like Family Guy, and he's a fantastic sculptor also. But he's up and he's just hearing what he does and having to learn the ZBrush and stuff. And you're actually hands on. And as you know, we talked about Jordu Shell the other day. Jordu. I just can't understand. Just if you're good at doing this as a sculptor and doing all that, and then you have to go and do it on a computer, it's a complete different art, I think. And it's just like, man,
well, I did take a ZBrush class years ago, and my instructor, Dave Ego, who's pretty big out here in California, he's an amazing ZBrush artist, amazing artist in general. But he was my instructor, and he said that he's like, you're really good at this. And I'm like, but I hate it. I hated doing it. I hated being on, the computer screen doing that. And I compare it to this, like computers to me are like when babies cry, something's wrong, but you have to figure it out on your own. And if I play and I drop a tool, I bend over and I pick up the tool. If I'm working on my computer and something goes wrong, I have no clue. I just get so frustrated, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know where to begin, how to fix this problem. Just not fluent enough in that language to really want to do it. So I just stick to what I'm good at, which is just clay.
Yeah, you're damn good at it. I've seen some. It's crazy all these different photos. When we talked for almost hour and a half the other night, and you just sharing some of these photos and like the droid that you did, for your first film, that it's so inspiring. Before we get into the film thing, when you decided, hey, you know what, I love Star Wars. I want to make a movie. What was the decision? How come you made the decision to make a Star Wars film? Were you looking to get picked up? I know you've already been involved working with Lucasfilm or with on the backside of things, behind the scenes. But were you hoping that maybe you'd get, and never know what can happen in the future, but what were you looking to get out of it? Because I know when you put in all that time and money, I know this it's really hard when you get all these artists together and collaborate to do something that you've done and recreate all these creatures and like the droid. What was your idea and mindset going into doing a Star Wars film versus doing a story that you could have just come up on your own that's non-Star Wars related?
Yeah. So when we had our conversation the other night, Michael, I did say that I am an independent filmmaker and I made a horror movie back in 2008.
Okay.
Ultra low budget. And when people hear ultra low budget, they don't know what that means. A studio movie like the new Godzilla movie that came out, that's $15 million budget, is still a very low budget for a film.
Right, for sure.
So my first film was $23,000, which is probably Tom Cruise's napkin budget on any film he's on.
Understand.
So with that, I had to scrape, the problem with being a filmmaker nowadays, and I hear this a lot, it's so much easier to make a movie nowadays, but so much harder to sell a movie.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Problems with the streaming networks, the problems now with the strikes were because of, that very situation where they can stream 100 million times, but you can't prove how many times somebody's watched it.
Yeah,
so
damn.
The actors are getting screwed out of their basic contracts, the residuals contracts. So that's a huge problem of what's going on with filmmaking now. So it's been the flip. It's easier to make a film, harder to make a dime off of anything.
Yeah.
So back 2008, when I did my horror movie, and I wouldn't recommend anyone go watch it because it's.
Oh, come on.
I call it my student film.
That's what I call my Finding McKinney. It's definitely my student film.
Yeah. I just went out and I'm like, for my passion about monsters and stuff, I just made a movie, but I found some success. I managed to sell it to Redbox. I sold it to Netflix. It was on Netflix for a couple years. They have since taken it down several years ago. I sold it to like 5 different foreign territories through a distributor, of course. So I was able to make the money back and make a little bit of money on top of that. No great successful type thing, but that was my first dive into actually filmmaking. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I'm like, okay, making monsters for other people's stuff was great. Making monsters for my personal stories, and that's it right there. That's what I want to do.
That's awesome.
While I'm waiting for my door to get beat down by any kind of major studio saying, hey, we want to hire you as a director, which has never happened, by the way.
Never say never, Tim.
Well, the story.
But I understand.
Continue as a filmmaker. So what do? You just wait, or you get off your butt, you go make something else. So I thought, okay, what should I make this time that I can get a lot of people to see? It's not your own story idea, although those, everyone's got a film that's like unique and special to their own idea, and it might be really cool. But what's a mass audience going to want to watch? And at the time, my son was 5 years old, so I wanted to combine a couple things, which was not only make a short film, but sort of catalog my son at that age.
That's awesome.
Instead of taking 100 million photos, which we do have now, I have thousands of pictures of my kid. Put that together. So I thought, okay, what would be fun with my son? I have a couple friends that have cameras and stuff like that. Let's just go shoot this small thing. And at the time, I just met a producer who's got his company called Escape Velocity Content. And he's a huge Star Wars fan. And we went to lunch one day and we were just talking about things we wanted to do and things, and I said, yeah, I really want to do this project with my kid. And basically we're just wrapping up lunch and I'm leaving. And I said, oh, it's a Star Wars thing, maybe it'll happen. So he's like, what? He's like, sit down, let's talk about this. I'm like, okay. Yeah. He's like, dude, I'll help you produce that. I'm like, okay. So it turned from something just fun to take your kid out to the woods or something and film him doing some fun stuff to it became a huge production.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, and I met so many of the people that I've worked on both of these films are carryovers from the crew from the first one. So the first one, called Birth of a Monster, was the one that you were referring to earlier, and I believe it has like 3.4 million views, which just totally blew us away, which was incredible. But some really cool things have come out of that, also through the effects world. And so I designed this character, this droid that is supposed to be this little kid's companion, and I called it OTK. And most people don't know what that means, and I have to explain to them. OTK means original trilogy kids. So
Oh,
That's awesome. That would be me.
yeah,
yeah, right. I'm gonna bring up your Instagram because I saw that you have a couple of pictures as you're working on it, right?
that is
I think
something else. That's
coming up. Hold on. Let me get your kid. That's your kid. I'm like scrolling, but I saw right here. This one,
yeah,
right?
that is OTK. Yes. That is a material called golden foam. It's
Mhm.
a very carvable, like floral foam, and you get in different densities.
Mhm.
Because of the nature of that project, I need to do a lot of stuff, and I need to do as cheaply as I possibly could because we did not have any financiers. It was just me and whatever I could put into it. So I made one of these guys. I carved his head out of foam,
Mhm.
vacuum formed, the major components, and that's the finished piece before as a vacuum form, what's called a buck.
Yep.
That buck then became a wearable plastic piece that there's only one of. I only have one of those. Yeah, so he's the one of a kind OTK head that my buddy Dan Bowman played him.
Mhm.
And at the time, Dan had never had any acting experience. And Dan worked for GM. He was a car builder, so he was big into art, huge into Star Wars. So we became instant friends years ago. Um, when I asked him, because he's 5'9", I believe, really thin. So I said, "Hey, would you want to play a droid in my fan film?" He's like, "Sure." The cool thing about Dan is, since Birth of a Monster, Dan has now played a couple characters on the Star Wars TV shows. So he's
Oh,
the 3PO protocol droids. He played in Ahsoka. He played one of the red ones.
okay.
I think it was I want to say it was Ben Kenobi. He played the blue, like blue
That
crow.
one from the
Yeah,
bar.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally.
So he's kind of taken off doing his thing.
Yeah.
That started with our little project.
Yeah.
And this character right now, this OTK character, Dan and I met another guy who was a car builder, Star Wars fan, a guy by the name of Chris Bartlett.
Bartlett.
So Chris Bartlett, he actually had done a couple things sanctioned by Disney in the past as C-3PO. Like he'd done the Oscars, like he presented at the Oscars as C-3PO. And they had another person in line to play one of the characters in Mandalorian that unfortunately didn't work out. And in a meeting, they basically were looking for somebody to fill the spot of this character called Zero. And I just raised my hand. I'm like, "Hey, I just met a guy who's, plays C-3PO for, events and Oscars and stuff like that. Let's give him a ring." And the office coordinator at Legacy got his information, gave him a call, said, "Hey, if Disney's fine with your, employment," which is always kind of a politically tricky thing sometimes. If they're good with it, we'll bring you in. We'll get you fitted into this character. So Chris's first character was Zero on Mandalorian, and since then, I found out that Chris has just finished his 20th droid character in the Star Wars universe. So he's done 20 characters total. Zero, I think he's played. Man, I'm gonna brain fart on all the characters he's done, but he's done. Just look up Chris Bartlett.
Well, I'll tell you what, this droid that you created, Tim, is badass. I mean, it's badass looking. I love how he's all weathered. His character was I loved his character. Loving the little boy.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like the father figure to the kid. And I only had 20 minutes to tell this encompassing story that has the DNA of one of the original 3 movies. If you haven't seen, I'm not going to blow the story for you, but this little kid has his droid companion that only makes it partly through the story. And I wanted it to be an emotional moment. I wanted to have some gravitas and people to feel something for this character in such a short period of time. And I think we pulled that off. And OTK has become kind of like, very close to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's like first creation.
I want one.
Well, not only. Well, yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
To continue with the cool things that have come from Birth of the Monster, the first short, that character OTK was spotted by someone at Lucasfilm. They redesigned it. Then they hired me to go back and resculpt him as a cleaner new version that ended up in he's Copper. That's the Book of Boba Fett on the right. He was the service protocol droid for the Twi'lek when he gets the ice cream maker that explodes.
Yeah.
So Chris as our updated OTK character. They never gave him a name. He's just protocol droid, whatever.
If that isn't respect from Lucasfilm to you, Tim, I don't know what is. Except maybe hiring you to direct another Star Wars.
Well, I mean, it's been a very nice nod. We all still on the production team of the first short, we just geek out all the time. And I've worked on the Star Wars shows, but there's nothing cooler than a character made for a fan film become canonized into the actual Star Wars universe by 3 different characters of the same design.
And the one thing that I'll say too, and my hats off to you, is that you captured something in that droid that is very like original trilogy, very like in universe, because you tend to see some of these protocol droids and they kind of all look the same, right? They all look like C-3PO. They all kind of, they're very like almost carbon copies of each other. But this one's so original, but yet it captures something that's very like, again, I look at it and I'm like, this could have been on the Sandcrawler. Like this could have been in Jabba's palace. Like you captured
funny thing about what you said, Gabe, the first time we got him, I say snuck into the show.
Yeah.
When someone from production was looking for droid suits that they could put into the Sandcrawler on Book of Boba Fett.
Oh.
So took the Disney came by my place. They had a runner pick up the OTK suit, and he is in the Sandcrawler in Book of Boba Fett when they find him.
Oh, dude, that's so cool.
Yeah, he's in the background to the right of frame. He's barely noticeable, but we know he's there.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So he's in the Sandcrawler, which is really neat.
Where is he now? That's what I want to know.
He is currently still my property. I own him.
Okay.
He is at Dan Bowman's place. Dan has a very large garage. He's got a lot of cars that he builds there. So he's on display at Dan's place because we have sort of like that parental dispute over who should have him. Because I
think I should have him, honestly.
I built him, but Dan played,
I got some protocol droids here. I think I need to have them. I gotta put them next to CZ3 here, and
I've known you longer, Tim. You know what I mean? So
way back to like a week.
and we got 45. No.
Yeah, I don't have a picture up on my Instagram, but he's also become Copper, which is the newest protocol droid of the same design in Mando 3. So if you look up Mando 3 and you look up Copper, they actually gave him a name, but he's the one that is assisting Carl Weathers the whole time through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's also played by Chris. Yeah. So
hey, just a question is, there in this, we know and have had on our show so many inspiring artists, whether they're sculptors, whether they're artists, where they do artwork or whatever it may be. And I'm really big into the studio scale models in the community. And I know that there's so many people. So one thing that I would say about Lucasfilm, tell me if I'm wrong, Tim, is, they are very respectful because to the fandom out there, the collectors. And I think it's awesome that they allow, people like you to create, a Star Wars film. And I think there's respect on both sides, but I do understand what you mean about it's a little political sometimes. But I want you to know what I love about it, Tim, personally, is because I am an original trilogy guy. And when even if it's, 8 minutes or 25 minutes or whatever it may be, I love it when it's something that goes back to the original where, you know, you see the Tusken Raider. That was legit. I was like, man, where did y'all shoot that at? You know, I mean, everything looked legit. And it's and less is more, I was telling you, in my humble opinion, I think. And I also like about this is that it could, you know, it could be during a certain time of the original trilogy stuff, but it doesn't get in the way and destroy, like, for example, Boba Fett. He's destroyed now. He's, you know, kind of a, you know what I'm saying? Everyone
Well,
has
but what I'm
badass.
saying is that here's what I'm saying though with that whole thing, and it's funny that you bring that up, is that you guys should all watch Sands of Fate because I love that aspect, and I'm not gonna ruin it for anyone because
No,
you
no.
guys should go see it. But I mean, the end part is just like, man. I mean, that just immediately when I saw that, I'm like, Lucasfilm needs to do that. Like
Yeah.
they need to fix that. They need to do that. You know, like
So
And you went back, Tim. I don't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
oh, no, go
You
ahead.
went back, Tim. Like when you created these certain characters for the film, you actually made them like puppets, and you did it just like the original, like Phil Tippett did in the original film. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. The certain costumes, some of these guys are also builders and they own their own costumes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say which ones in that particular film because I don't want to ruin the story. But I can go like Chris Bartlett owns that the Chrome Death Star droid costume. So I instead of having just a droid, I'm like, let's do something different with that guy. Let's make him a bounty hunter. We don't know if he's all machine or if he's part machine. Let's give him like the orange flight suit pants and boots and gloves, which is a cool take on, like, he's just not a standard droid. Like, we didn't just pick him off the shelf and put him into the film. He's his own thing. And I called him C-19. So C-19 in our new short, Sands of Fate, stands for COVID-19 because we started this thing right as COVID started and it completely screwed up our production. COVID shut the world down in California. So this is why this particular short has taken us over 3 years to finish. Yeah, so C-19 in the upper left, that's Chris as that character. But the other part of it too, we wanted to do more action in this one. So instead of having such a cumbersome, droid costume, putting just the armor of the chest and arms and the head on enabled Chris to perform a lot more because he then could free his hands up and his legs and do all kinds of stuff. So we have a very unique character, but also utilitarian. It has a purpose. So the creation of Sands of Fate came right after we finished the first one, Birth of a Monster. And, it's such an exhausting, as you know, Michael, making a film, no matter what budget, is a lot of work. And going back to like touching on a couple things that you said, Disney Lucasfilm has been very respectful because, we've never been like in trouble for making this. It's just an homage to our love to Star Wars.
That's
and
right.
We cannot make money off this.
Right.
Anything we put up, we're not asking for money. We never received a dime, in profit or anything like that on Birth of a Monster. Although for the second one, we did get some crowdsourcing funds just for the production, and that got cut really short because of COVID. So we got some money in the beginning, and that managed us to get like a day of shooting that was pretty much it. So, being an artist, when you're talking about feast and famine, like for me, I've put so much of my own time and effort into this. I couldn't even afford myself, I could even pay myself to do this. And aside from like everybody donating their time and their effort has been so incredible that after we finished the first one, and it came out and we had a screening and we were just like, oh man, this is so great. I'm like, do you guys want to do another one? And we're like, yeah, we're nuts. We'll do another one. So that's how Sands of Fate started. So the stories were my brain children. I wanted to do something related to Star Wars. Like with Birth of a Monster, it was related to a famous scene that you saw in Return of the Jedi. One tiny little clip of a guy and his reaction to something that happens meant so much to me as a kid. So I'm like, well, I can do a whole story around this character and his backstory. And, and this whole like thing kind of just grew, and it became this really awesome, like, you know, a lot of people consider it canon, and that's, you know, it's a fan thing. The comments on that video are amazing. Like, so many people are like, this is amazing, I consider this canon. And that's like the biggest compliment you can get from the Star Wars crowd, when they consider that part of the entire universe. You know, that's, I couldn't ask for anything more. Yeah, I had no expectations. We didn't expect it to do anything. And then we got 3.5 million views, which is great because none of us were YouTubers. None of us had huge followings. You know, I still don't, I don't keep up with my Instagram so much. I probably have like 5,000 followers, you know, none of us are in millions or anything like that. So for it to have almost 3.5 million views is based solely on the merit of the project. And you know, which is great. So when we launched Sands of Fate, I want to say it was about a week ago, 13th. So that's about a little over a week ago, 10 days or whatever. That has already started to climb in its viewership. I think it's mid 20s, maybe late 20,000 views right now. And that's fine. If it stopped right now, I'd be like, that's awesome. 20,000 people saw my project, and that's fantastic. You know, the other, you know, when I created these, I wanted to come up with stories that were outside the box. I didn't want to mess with the same stuff everybody's always been doing.
Exactly.
My rules was no lightsabers. There will be no lightsabers in these shorts.
Thank you.
I love Star Wars, but I am so sick of Star Wars lightsaber duels. Like, that's not the project. That's just the tiniest bit in a story. Much bigger than that, you know, like lightsabers, you know. I won't do that. I won't do any lightsabers, you know, in these shorts.
The sad thing is, though, is nowadays, I think, with the generation that's used to the phones and everything. Remember, I was talking to you about doing an ET sequel. No matter how good that is, it's keeping the audience's attention nowadays. It isn't about the story like it used to be. That's why in the 80s, we have such a, I think, in my humble opinion, a found love for the 70s and the 80s, whether it's music, whether it's film, because there was a lot of love that went into a script and a story. And now they have to make up for that. I mean, seeing like Godzilla now, with me and my daughter went and saw Wonka today. And, you know, I was watching them during the trailers, this badass King Kong and Godzilla and our kids nowadays, they're spoiled on technology. And it's just, I mean, can you imagine in the 80s, if we saw something like that, it'd be like, holy shit. So, you know, it's badass that you go back to the simple of not the lightsabers.
I was gonna say that as well, because as you know, obviously, you know, I am, you know, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. I do have a pretty big following when it comes to that. And whenever I post a video about like some original classic trilogy stuff, like again, like CZ3, the video flops. But then as soon as you put a lightsaber that you know, a little glowing stick, all of a sudden it's like thousands and thousands of views. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, why? Like, what is it with these lightsabers? So I appreciate your comment in that, because I do have this weird, almost hatred, not hatred, but like animosity towards them. That's why if people ask me about my lightsabers, I'm like, mine don't turn on. Mine are prop replicas. They're just the handle. I don't have any that light up. Like, no, I don't. Those are toys. You know?
It's because I kind of feel like the trend of having to grab attention so quickly is a snake eating its own tail, because then the story is always going to suffer. And we've seen that again and again and again with these huge movies that do not do well. And they're pretty, but the story there, and you just kind of don't care, you know? Just don't care about the characters. And it's like, that's storytelling since the dawn of time. You have to be interested and invested in what the person's journey, not the toy that they're wielding, because that is such a minor part of, you know, the original Star Wars. You know, Luke Skywalker doesn't even use a lightsaber in the first one, except for training a little bit. You know?
Exactly.
You have 17-minute fight scenes, you know. How long was the Mustafar fight scene between Anakin and Obi-Wan?
And you know what? that's a great point, Tim. I think what it is also is the generation right now that's kind of in. I don't want to say in control, but yeah, like the generation that's consuming the Star Wars content is the prequel generation,
Yeah.
right? It's these kids that grew up on the prequels that are now feeling nostalgic for that, and that's what they were. They're lightsaber fights and very, obviously a lot of digital
Yeah,
and
and that's okay. But the thing is, because doing a short film doesn't mean I have to cater to
right.
all demographics. I'm catering to us. I'm catering to the guys who grew up watching those original movies, and how I was kind of filling the gaps in some of the storylines of the original films. That's why my first two shorts are basically they're boxing in stories from the first three. I don't go further back to the prequels, and I don't go further forward, to the sequels. I like a lot of the stuff, but nothing ever is heartfelt to me like the first three films, and that's okay, because to have the argument with people saying, "Oh, well, you're not in the 18 to 24 demographic." I'm like, no, I'm in the 40-year-old demographic, to where now I can afford all the toys that I didn't have as a kid. So I'm the one actually buying the toys. I'm the one all that money for my kid. 18-year-old kids aren't going to spend the money. They're not going to go to the theater. So who are you catering to? If you really want to sell something, you sell to the people who are going to buy something.
I would love to see just like a day, maybe into a night, of Luke Skywalker at 11. You know what I mean?
Right.
11 years old, just shooting some womp rats or whatever. You know what I mean? And just, just cool shit.
Some womp rats.
Playing with that P-16. Yeah. Skywalker.
That's why I wanted to just play and I wanted to get your permission though. I wanted to pull up just kind of one of the intro scenes, at the beginning of the film, just so we can show the audience kind of the level of kind of nostalgia that you're bringing to your short film. I wanted to play just a short part of the cantina scene. Is that okay if I bring that up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Let me bring that up really quick.
Dude, that sculpt is badass back there, dude.
While you do that, I'm going to plug
What's your next pillow?
Okay.
Why do we make our pillow in the shape of a cube?
Real quick, let me.
I'll tell you.
Okay. Second.
Anakin, I've known you since you were.
What a cool dude.
Yeah, no, I want to find this because I love the callback.
I should know.
Like this. As soon as I saw this, I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. Like, you're in the cantina scene and you got, a hammerhead. Like, I mean,
It was part of the problem. Hey, look at this. See that? I have a last deployment. Now I can barely even shoot straight. Who do you think the damn soul-sucking galactic empire? That's who. Are you even listening? Fine. Leave.
Again,
Lighting's fantastic.
I mean, yeah, just that intro scene, and again, even the character you're seeing, he's real. Like
I fucking love Hammerhead, dude. That's badass.
So that particular prop, the guy who played my OTK droid, Dan, he actually sculpted that hammerhead.
It's fantastic.
Out of styrofoam. So a lot of the stuff that we did was a lot of styrofoam sculpts, and because we didn't have the money to sculpt out of clay and then mold,
right,
and then do things properly for an actual film, a lot of it's very, very low tech ghetto stuff. I mean,
was his eyes blinking or no? Hammerhead.
That's VFX.
Wow.
Digital blinks, and
a lot of that's fantastic, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it looks great, and it's basically it's paper mache.
Yeah, that's good old days.
I still latex on it and I painted it, but Dan did that. So Dan in his own right is a fantastic artist himself, and for this one, we had a lot of background characters that we hardly even see. Some of them got picked up in the shots and some of them didn't. But like I built a ton of costumes and different heads and stuff, but everything had to be super, super down and dirty. You know, like nothing was done in clay first.
I just want to play a little bit of the Max Rebo band, because again, Max Rebo band is probably one of my favorite things in, you know, from that Java scene. And the fact that you guys made these, right? I mean, I'm gonna play just a quick little clip. Look at that Max Rebo.
I know, it's bad.
So Max Rebo, I actually sculpted out of mattress foam. And I foam fabricated it like they pretty much did. Phil Tippett did for Return of the Jedi. So I think mine is pretty faithful to what he looked like.
Yeah.
Size Noodles puppet, I actually sculpted out of mostly styrofoam as well, and had a little bit of engineering, puppeteering her. Like we had her up on strings, basically like a marionette. We were just having her bounce around.
Yeah.
Because she, like, in the original Return of the Jedi, they had the whole floor that was fake, and there's a puppeteer underneath it, you know, puppeteering this puppet. But we didn't have that, you know, we didn't have that kind of money or time. Wow. So it's, she's on strings right there.
I love the eye. What's the eye called from the garbage chute?
Yeah, I just had that, and he's kind of sitting back behind the keyboard, just hanging out.
Yeah, there it is. Man, that's so cool. And then what inspired, also there's like a Salacious Crumb type of creature, right?
Yes.
The longer
I did sculpt that guy out of clay. His head and neck. It's actually, I made this a female. She has like foam torso. Mm-hmm. I think some of the photos I sent you yesterday, Mike, I had my hand in the body.
Yes, I sent that to Gabe.
Yeah,
that's styrofoam. So I'm through that wall. That's a styrofoam wall that I had my hand up in doing this kind of thing, you know.
Wow.
Puppeteering her through the wall. And Dan, again, is playing Max Rebo, and I'm puppeteering that, pulling strings. We're just like, I'm one of those guys with like the drums and the cymbals and things tied to everything, you know, just kind of clanging around everywhere. Yeah, that's
a great picture there.
Yeah, that's the beginning of her as a puppet, and super low tech because there's just no time or money, you know.
And that's how it was, you know, in Star Wars. You know, it just on a different budget, but it was the same thing.
Yeah,
they had to borrow from Rick Baker just to get other aliens in there, you know.
Have you met Rick before?
Yeah, I've met him a couple times. I've never worked at his place, but a lot of my friends, you know, I've been there for a long time, and I've met him in passing and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. I want to bring up that other picture that you had sent Michael with you next to. Oh, I think it's actually your son. I think
I love that picture too. I love that picture.
Nice noodles. Let me bring that up really quick. Yeah, that picture is really, and it's a cool way to show kind of the scale of it too, because
it was funny, Gabe, because I was talking to Tim, and I didn't realize. I guess we were a speaker or something, and his son's 12 now, correct, Tim? He's 12.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh, that was your son. I mean, he's such a beautiful boy. So at 12, you know, he's like almost a teenager, like whatever, you know, but to be able to capture something like that. But he was that cool little adventure kid that, you know, I know that feeling of finding that character, but he had the look. It's not just one thing that because it was his son, he brought him on, but he actually had the look of that kid, you know, so it worked out perfect.
Yeah. He was 5, almost 6 when we started Birth of a Monster, and we actually, because of, you know, production problems, we had to do pickup shots. And in Birth of a Monster, where he takes his helmet off for the first time, he's actually 7.5 in that shot. So it bounces around a little bit, but fortunately you can't ever tell. He looks so Xander is his name. He's in Sands of Fate, but by this time he was 8, almost 9 when we shot it. And then he was going through a shy phase, and he didn't want to be in this one. So he's very, very briefly in the band sequence. wearing what looks like the Lando Calrissian helmet, playing this weird guitar for.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it really quick.
Yeah, that was good. I saw a couple shots of that. That was good.
Oh, here he is. Here, let me bring that up. Oh, that's very cool. He has his cameo in there.
Who knows? Maybe Lando got that. Actually, ends up being Lando's. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
there
one, right?
Modified.
There he is. That's
Yeah,
very
he's a
cool.
backup player for Max Rebo's band that we see very, very, very briefly, and we
Yeah.
shot more obviously, but when you're editing, a lot of stuff kind of gets chopped and goes away. And I wasn't going to just put 3 minutes of him standing there just because he's my kid. It has to service the story.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Quick
This
clip.
is the other thing I wanted to bring up too. You guys did a fantastic job with just the special effects and all everything on there. Like when I was watching this, I was like, this is Star Wars. Like I'm
Mhm.
watching Star Wars. Like it's
Our,
insane.
our VFX guy did not work on the first one. This is a friend of mine that I met through the producer. I say friend of mine because we're close now, but his name's Tony Capapio.
Mhm.
And he is originally a poster designer. He does a lot of 2D work, but his visual effects stuff is amazing.
That's
So
a great shot too, right there.
he also
I love that. That's very like McQuarrie like concept art, right? With like Luke looking over the.
so he built the speeder bike. He did a lot of the compositing when it comes to the laser blast and stuff like that. He had a handful of other guys helping him as well. You can read those through the credits, but Tony, I had this spider droid, this weird like Nerf toy that I took the top off. I put more of a Imperial probe droid top on it, and it just kind of went meh, 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 didn't do much. So Tony saw that, like, dude, I'm gonna rebuild this whole thing. So he basically I gave him one of those props, and he rebuilt the whole thing in his computer. So in Sans
Yeah.
2 spider droids, 99% of that is just computer animation.
Wow.
It looked just like the thing that I built. They just
That's
actually they could act.
Wow. Here, let me bring. I found it. Hold on, because that's actually very cool. That was probably one of the things I was just like, I don't remember seeing that in Star Wars. Like I'm like, that's
Well,
so.
the other thing you're talking about, Gabe, when it comes to Star Wars, do we have to see like the same 5 aliens in every single thing they put out? I thought this galaxy was supposed to be massive. They should be like, I'm not the biggest fan of Last Jedi, but when they had the casino planet, there's all kinds of aliens in there, which was great. It needs to be expanded on. So this, I didn't want anyone to say, oh, I know exactly what that is, but I wanted to go look at it and go, oh, that definitely looks Star Wars, but we've never seen anything like that before, So in that
That
sequence,
was incredible. That was incredible.
And that's exactly what you achieved because again, it confused me because it looks so in universe. It looks like it is
Yeah.
Star Wars. It belongs in it.
taking design elements, DNA from the probe droid and putting it on a little spider, and then as we were kind of working things out, like, oh, how should they be introduced? And I put my hands together like this with Tony, like, how about if we made both of them like a ball? And he's like, oh, that would be cool. So the sequence when that thing arrives is basically both of them put together like a tank tread rolling through the desert. And then they stop and they split apart and they become 2 spiders. And that was just us making that up on the fly. The sequence with the Tusken Raider and the Jawas who find that was an additional thing that I threw in there because Chris Bartlett had the costume. He's like, hey, I've got a Tusken Raider. I'm like,
I'm glad you did that, dude.
let's do something with that. So I wrote that into there and that ends up being like one of my favorite sequences.
Yeah.
Mine too. And I know you said it wasn't, but it really looks like Death Valley.
Yeah. So we shot Birth of a Monster, a couple scenes at Death Valley. Is the sand dune parts, like when Xander takes his helmet off, that reveal, him and OTK wandering through the desert was at Death Valley. The Sands of Fate, again, production problems. And when you're dealing with guerrilla filmmaking, the story I'm about to tell you is something that does happen. So we went down to a place called Anza Borrego, which is a little desert east of San Diego. So it's in San Diego County. It's the canyon where he finds the crate in the Tusken Raiders there. So we shot there all day long, and then we had a production problem because it was during COVID-19, and the sheriffs had showed up and shut us down. So we weren't able to finish what we had actually planned to shoot. There was the shootout between Tiro and C-19. So I'm like, crap, we got half of what we want for the story, but none of what we actually scripted first. So our option, we scrambled like, okay, what do we do? Sorry, battery's dying. What do we do? Well, when we shot Birth of a Monster out in Barstow at a place called the Calico Ghost Mines, I'm like, why don't we just have Tiro grab the crate and drag it through, and we'll do a Star Wars swipe at the passage of time. And it looked like he's actually gone through this desert for a long period of time. And turns out those two locations that are about 3.5 hours apart look identical in the short. Like you'd never know it's a different area. Completely.
Yeah, that Tusken Raider is fucking badass.
Yeah, so right here when he leans in, that's up in Barstow. And when he was fighting the Tusken Raider, that was in Anza Borrego. So it's two different.
Right before, yeah.
Man, hats off to you.
That was the swipe, right?
The swipe.
That was the Star Wars swipe right there.
You know, some clever filmmaking makes it work.
I love it. That's cool. I'm actually in San Diego, so it's kind of really cool to hear that you guys shot it, east here.
Yeah.
Can't believe that cop, man. It's like COVID or not, dude. This is a Star Wars film, dude. Get the road. What the hell's your problem?
It would have been a problem until the sheriff she came down and noticed how many people we actually had down there.
Oh, gotcha.
15 people. If it were just like I live in Burbank, and I think the rule of thumb here is if you have 3 people in a crew and you can move and not obstruct traffic, you can shoot wherever you want. You don't have to have a permit. So that being a national park during the time of COVID, where everything was locked down and you couldn't do anything in California, they were going to be really strict. So, yeah. But
I mean, San Diego was definitely, obviously I was here during that. I couldn't even go run in the park, like across the street from my house, without somebody, a cop stopping and be like, hey, you can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, I hope those days are behind us for sure. I hope we've learned a lesson that that's not the way to do this. So,
well, if you want to be in Freedom Land, that just come on down to Texas, dude. It's
Michael,
that way all the way around.
To move to Texas. And funny enough, you know how it's the crazy internet with it's listening to us, and every time we have this conversation on my phone, all of a sudden it's like a listing for like this Texas mansion for like a quarter of the price. And I always show my wife, I'm like, hey honey, look, I mean, I'm just saying. She's like, you just want like a Star Wars collection room. We're not moving to Texas for that.
Home of the free, baby.
But very cool. Tim, I obviously, we want to be respectful of your time. But I also wanted to, because you're a sculptor, and want to talk to you about, some of your sculpts, and just kind of, obviously this is awesome. The Rain Corps is one of, I'm sure, a lot of people's favorite things.
So that was so long ago. I hate myself right now because I cannot remember the guy's last name. That I found that was a digital model online.
Okay.
It took me a couple days to find the guy who built it, and when I found him, I said, "Hey man, would I be able to use your digital model in this short film that I'm doing?" He's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And I told him what the whole thing was about. It was with my kids, stuff like that. So he basically just said, "Yeah, have at it." So I did have that grown, and then I had to remold it and turn it into flexible, usable materials. So yeah, damn, I forgot his name. It's like I never even met the guy in person,
Yeah. But that was kind of what I was going to ask is, the collaborative portion of, of obviously this whole project and all the stuff that you've been doing. How has that been like as far as navigating from, obviously you've been in the professional world, right? You've been working on with Lucasfilm on these big shows, and then collaborating with fans and makers and builders. How has that been, kind of navigating back and forth?
Well, it's obviously it's two very different things. Like when I'm working for, Lucasfilm Disney officially, I do my sculpture and then someone else molds it and then someone else paints it, someone else wears it, someone else shoots it. I have my little part that I do. So there's a lot of creative freedom when you're making your own project. So to me personally, it's a lot more fun to make my fan films.
Yeah.
I do this whole encompassing thing where I get to make from start to finish this whole story and the costumes, and hire the right friends and guys who know what they're doing to do what we want to do. Instead of being like one of the guys where you're a hired gun and you do your thing and you sit back and watch it 2 years later when it comes out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. And just, I mean, obviously really quick, on, you worked on the Mandalorian, and I saw that, you sculpted like the Weequay, right? That we saw on the Mandalorian as well.
Yep. There have been a couple, and I don't remember if that was one that I had done, but I know I did. So it's hard to tell. Like when I send a sculpture in, and they turn it into a prosthetic, this went on a heavier set guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they made one specifically for him, or the one that I did ended up being one of the background characters. But I will say that the Quarren, the squid head guys, that I sculpted one of, and then when I watched it, it ends up being my sculpture was the entire species. So they used that same mask mold for all those characters. So that was cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. So his head and hands, Doug Chang, who was the
art director, right?
the art director of all the series. He did a maquette that I followed. So I sculpted this more on his maquette, not like a carbon copy of what was in Jedi. So it's a little bit of a different flavor. But I had no idea. Like I just don't know till I watched the episode. I'm like, oh man, it's not a background guy. It's the whole damn race. Cool.
Yeah.
Have you met Filoni or Favreau at all?
I met both of them on set. Really, of course, they're awesome guys. They're you want to just sit there and talk to them forever, but you really opportunity.
I'm looking for a picture. I could have sworn I saw one where it's Filoni and Kennedy like watching something, and you're kind of in the background.
Someone that was on like the behind the scenes.
Here it is.
It was on Disney Plus. It's like the behind the scenes episode. The background to the right, and someone wanted to go. It was actually my DP Nick Mahar sent me a screen grab of he's like, "Who's this in the background?" I'm like, "Oh shit, I didn't even know that was there."
And that's Chang, right? That's Chang back there.
Yeah, that's Doug Chang. That's Kathleen Kennedy, John Favreau.
Damn, that's badass.
And I don't remember what they were shooting, but I was on set for some creature stuff, babysitting a costume or puppeteering something, and I would just happen to catch me in the background.
Yeah,
that's so cool. And I also noticed that you got just some recognition for like even through like that, wasn't it the Emmys, right? They give you like a.
I did. We got a Emmy. The way that works, and it's kind of strange, is like not every person gets an Emmy statue, but if you're part of a group that wins an Emmy for an episode, and if you're one of the artists that help work on that, they'll send certificates to everybody who worked on it. So that's my shared Emmy.
That's very cool.
I'd go ahead and sculpt that Emmy if I was you.
I know, right? A Star Wars Emmy. Yeah.
Put some fangs on the. That'd be cool. Congrats on that too, by the way.
I'm definitely
very proud of that. I mean, and I've worked on, we've worked on movies that, get Oscars and stuff, and special makeup effects guys have throughout the dawn of time don't really get the credit that they deserve. Like Rick Baker is a very well known, very famous guy, but has a crew of 100 people. He's not the one doing absolutely everything. And he said with, my childhood idol, Stan Winston. I love Stan Winston. ever since I was a kid, and his son is a really good friend of mine. And it's no secret that Stan didn't do all the dinosaurs by himself.
Right, right.
It's his studio, so therefore everyone knows him, and they don't know the Joey Orozco's or the Trevor Hemsleys or all the guys who actually do the sculpting, the painting, and all the behind the scenes stuff. Crew of 150 people at Stan's on that one particular movie. That's a lot of people. So
Tim, that's what's so important. And when I was talking to you on the phone the other day with Collection Wars, we have a lot of industry guests such as yourself that are able to tell these behind the scenes stories, and it's fantastic. And
That's what I was gonna actually touch on that, Michael, is that we've had this kind of you know theme throughout Collection Wars, where there's really this art form, right, of sculpting with your hands, model making, that has slowly kind of started losing steam, and this older generation that's that worked on models and used their hands to it's kind of dying off, and there's this new generation that's kind of doing more 3D work. But there's people like yourself, a lot of the model makers that we have on the show that are keeping this art form alive. And I think for us, and I'm sure our viewers, like, we appreciate that so much more, because again, we grew up same thing. We're kids of the 70s and 80s, and we grew up with wanting to see this physical thing come to life. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it alive, and with the Star Wars series, there has been a huge resurgence in practical makeup effects, because I think people just understand there's a tangibility, excuse me, with actors on set. When it's real, it's real. When it's in front of the camera, it. And there's certain things you can accept, like Godzilla. You can't make anything that big, so CG is the best thing you can possibly do. And I do like CG a lot. And when it's done well, I think it's great, but it's a tool. If you have a nail, you hammer it in, if you have a screw, you use a screwdriver. It's the same thing with characters. If you have a humanoid sized character, don't make it CG because you can, do what's necessary. If it's a guy in a suit, make it a guy in a suit. If it's put it on an actor so that everyone else can react to that character,
Tim, what you being now involved in 2 Star Wars stories, shorts, where are you going to go from here? What's the plan from here? What do you want to do?
As a filmmaker, part of that is to try to prove my ability as a filmmaker director. And of course, I'm trying to get something together where I can actually make my own film with my own idea, but it's always it's the same story. It's like, where's the money coming from? If I could find the money to do, I have a handful of really good science fiction horror movies that I'd like to make on my own that they're not millions of dollars, I can get those going. But that's the thing, is this, I need to put it out there so I can get someone with enough sense to go, I want to invest in a film, and this guy's actually pretty damn good.
Pretty good portfolio.
Yeah, that's my portfolio essentially. Yeah. And again, I don't think that anybody could deny that, especially your talent and your eye for storytelling, because again, these short stories, I mean, they're so well done. And again, look, we've seen fan fiction, stories, and they're great. I mean, they're fun, there's people with costumes, but honestly, I personally have never seen one with all of those elements kind of mixed together and put in. So again, I immediately became a fan. As soon as I saw, I was like, wow,
that's legit. That's legit.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
And guys, for everyone that's watching, I did link both those films in the description. So as soon as we're done here, definitely go over there and check out Tim's films, because they're amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, hey, I do have to run. My phone is going to die, but
no problem.
I would definitely love a part 2 of this at some time.
Anytime.
Yeah, well, but before we exit out of here, Tim, I just, on behalf of me, Gabe, Collection Wars, everybody watching, to you and everybody that was involved in making these short films, thank you guys so much. keep the inspiration. Don't let it die. And I'm really glad to call you friend now, Tim.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
All right, brother.
Absolutely. And Tim, maybe next time we'll get a couple of other people that worked on the film too. Maybe we could do a little,
Yeah.
little powwow and talk about that. And you know, you guys.
I'd love to. Yeah, I'm sure I can get a bunch of people. So
Oh, let's do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's stay on just for a couple more minutes, me and you, Gabe, and Tim. Thank you so much for hopping on tonight, and I'll be talking to you real soon.
all right. Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Go
Tim.
find my droid, dude. I need my droid.
Yeah.
Tell your buddy it's getting ready to have a new home. We'll talk.
Thank
Right.
you.
See you,
Take care,
Tim.
buddy.
Bye.
Bye, buddy.
All right.
I hope he knows that I'm very serious about that.
I know you. Yeah, I'm sure he knows that.
All right.
But yeah, no, what I mean, what a fantastic. I mean, he's such a cool guy. I mean, again, I think he's our type of people, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
damn sure.
what it comes
That's
down
crazy looking back how many guests, the artists that we've had on, sculptors and you know, whether they're model makers or artists, you know, of all different genres. It's really kick ass, you know.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. And then especially like I love having guests like this that are, you know, that are doing original stuff, that they're putting themselves out there. And it's crazy to think that this film started, you know, back in what is it, 2019, right? Right before
Hey, I'm just gonna. I mean, it's just us now talking, and
Us now.
everybody, just us now. But listen, if there's anybody that deserves a shot, it's Tim.
Yeah.
I mean, he is fucking proven that. Look, you know, I mean, I've created droids, but look, he's got the respect.
Yeah.
Maybe this next one will put him over the edge, and maybe some of the other people that are involved too. Maybe they'll get work, you know, from it. But you know, we've talked to David several times about the starving artist, the feast and famine. A lot of the people that have been on our show, Jordu, a lot of them are. There's times where they're like, don't know how they're going to make rent next month, you know.
And you know, I think that's, you know, the life of an artist sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Musicians, artists, all that. And but
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day, I envy that because they're doing what they love and
That's right.
good at what they do. And you know, and they'll eventually it pays off, right? And I think that's kind of the end goal, right? And even if it's just, look, at the end of the day, if it's inspiring other fans, like, you know, with Tim, inspiring other fans to just go and do your stuff, and you know, or build a droid or build a Star Wars character or something. I mean, that alone is a lot, right? It says a lot. So
Yeah, to know that he created a droid that Lucasfilm has taken and put in their movie, that's just like, golly, that's pretty badass. But yeah, then at the end of the day, though, when the doors are closed and he's sitting at home by himself and the mail shows up and the rent's due and stuff, it's still, that's all cool. But it's like, fuck, if I could just get more money.
That's where the community comes in, and that's where, you know,
where
we can do to, you know,
that's right. And
help
that's
out.
That's what we're here to try to do, man. You never know, right? And
You
I'll
know,
tell you what, I remember just briefly.
We've done it with a lot of, you know, other artists.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he does a lot of, you know, Predator. He's done a lot of stuff like, you know, Richard Riley did my Wampa and my Jaws. This guy is capable of doing that stuff. So I now know this guy too, which is really cool. It's good knowing these guys. But I remember, you know, what he was saying about, you know, it's easy to make a movie, but selling it or streaming it. And I remember back in the day when I did mine, it was, you know, like VHS copies, you know what I mean? And I remember having like 20 VHS copies and going to 20th Century Fox, Lorimar Studios, and going to Disney and all these people. And then they're like, oh, sorry, we don't take unsolicited material. And just to know back then how hard it was and what it would be like now, it's just like, shit.
But I guess in this day and age too, though, I mean, with the internet, with social media, and that's why it is really important too to understand the power of social media, right?
For sure.
We're living in a world where, you know, someone puts out a video on TikTok of doing something talented, whether it's a song or an art piece or something, and all of a sudden it changes their life overnight. That's right. Again, social media is a very powerful tool these days, marketing tool. So, you know, you never know. You never
just never
right?
know. Yeah. And it's another really cool story. It was a cool story. I love that character that he created.
Me too. I love that droid.
Yeah,
But
man.
hey, Michael, we didn't say hi to all our friends because we jumped in because I know
Yeah. And he was limited on time.
Let's just quickly jump in here and say what's up, Johnny? What's up,
Yeah, what's up?
Robin? What's up, Robin? Janine, how you doing, Janine?
Hey, how you doing?
Armando, what's up? How you doing? We got Benjamin. What's up, Benjamin? Guillermo, what's up, man? Star Wars Addict 88, not to be confused
With 77.
Evan, what's up, Evan? How you doing, brother? We got everyone's just chatting it up.
Yeah.
5, what's up? Solo Fat, Chris was, what's up, man? We got Raging Mando, what's up, bro? Frankie. We got Flex in the house. What's up, Flex? How you doing?
Flex.
Ryan and Julie. By the way, guys, Ryan and Julie, man, I love those two. They obviously, we know about the furnace, which I'm sure we'll get some more information about later. But they just shipped off my beads that were so infamously popular on the show. But I shared it. I shared one of the pictures on Instagram, and again, the power of social media. Rosario Dawson reshared that story.
That's
So
very cool.
got to see those beads in the beautiful case that Julie made on Rosario Dawson's Instagram. So very cool. Yeah, everyone was just chatting it up.
Yeah.
Jim, what's up? Marcel, what's up? David, what's going on, brother?
Yeah.
A little late to the party. Yeah, man, you got to watch this fan film. Awesome. It's really great. Let's see. We got Edson. What's up, Edson? How you doing, man?
Hey, buddy.
Do back deliveries. What's up?
Happy holidays to you too, man.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Christmas is a couple days away. You guys got any plans, Michael? You staying in?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. We're gonna go hang out with my family over to my son's at one of my boys' house, and then the following week, her family is gonna come over. So we're gonna be doing 2 Christmases a week apart. So like, a lot going on. So
Yeah.
Christmas is supposed to be there. I mean, we need to stop sometimes and realize what Christmas is truly about, right? But yeah, I just don't understand why it brings so much stress and sorrow when it's a time of love and being with your families. And I don't know why every year, of course it doesn't help that, my mom's not here and that, so I get kind of like, humbug, but I'm trying to keep that smiley face on, you know what I mean? So,
yeah. And again, man, you got to think about also you're that person for other people, right? And those are those memories that they're gonna cherish. And
thanks for saying that, Gabe, because you're right about that. Because I get that's kind of selfish, and sometimes it's understandable, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't want to show up and I need to be good with the rest of my family because that's the way my mom would want it. She loved Christmas, and I was able to think Denise's idea. She pulled out some jewelry for my daughters to give to them for Christmas. So that's, it's going to be a pretty neat little thing. But yeah, what you just said actually helped me a lot. You might not even realize, Gabe, because I've been pretty shitty today, actually, and kind of bitchy. Everything that is said, I can make it. Denise has been trying to be so positive and happy, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're all happy about. This is shitty. And, but yeah, I need to get out of my thing.
Yeah, man. And again, I think that's something that, I mean, we've talked about this even on Collection Wars, right? That it's like, look, we're doing this kind of documentation of us, even like our friendship and our friendship with our friends and our passion for Star Wars. But at the end of the day, man, this is something that's gonna live on the internet forever.
Yeah, it's archived. That's right.
Our kids and our grandkids, and they're gonna be able to look us up, and we're gonna be there, and they're gonna be able to spend hours and hours and hours listening to how passionate we were about certain things. They're going to hear these stories about them, right? Because
Yeah.
we tell stories about them and like
All
what
the
we're,
time.
so,
That's-
you know, it really is, you know, and it's sometimes you do have to put it in perspective that, you know, you want to create those memories for your family, because at the end of the day, they're, you know, they're looking
yes.
up to you for that. So
100%. And you know, guys and gals, it's funny because midweek I was just messing around on YouTube, and I had found a video of Gabe and I when we first
Yeah.
started. We actually announced that we're actually it started out as a tour. I think Gabe had me on as a guest and was showing the gallery here, and then we announced at the end of the show, you know, that we're getting ready to be a part of this. And who would know that from that date, I mean, we've barely missed any Saturdays. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
And since then, and all of the friendships that have been created, all these other channels that, in my humble opinion, wouldn't exist if it wasn't for what Collection Wars started and created. And it just, the friendships, it's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, man. And that's what let me bring those up, because I know, yeah, you sent me those videos, and I'm like, yeah, man, that is true. Like
There's one. Yeah, that was funny. That's funny that you saw that. Yeah.
it all started with this. Let me bring it up. Now
It's
I might
hilarious
let me bring it up.
where it all started.
Yeah, I know, right? Scott, yeah. Where is it?
Yeah.
Forever, yeah. I know, man.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Forever.
Forever.
Right. All right. So here's it is, where I guess we're
to let the cat out of the bag. We're going to be partnering up and doing a channel
look at my
together.
weird mustache that I had going
Yeah,
on.
wars, collection wars, guys. So me and Michael are going to be partnering up, and we're going to be going live every single week to talk about Star Wars collections, and we're going to have industry guests to talk about, you know, all of these props and, you know, everything that we love and we share. You know, as far as Star Wars passion, we're going to try to bring that to you guys, and hopefully we can have some amazing collections and collectors join us every week and talk Star Wars. Absolutely. Yeah, we've got already some guests that are lined up. If are remotely into studio scale, we're going to have a guest on to talk about how to acquire studio, how to get started into collecting studio scale. And if you're into vintage, we're going to be talking about vintage and collecting and all kinds of really cool stuff. I'm looking forward to it, Gabe, for sure. I'm excited. So, guys, everybody that's watching this, as soon as we finish here, go to the channel Collection Wars. I'll put a link in the description.
That's funny. Yeah, that was 2020, like I want to say early 2020, right?
Yeah. Well, Gabe, dude, congrats, dude. That on a ride it's continuing and it's been badass. We just never know what's going to happen next. But I'll tell you what, man, it's been a ride, that's for sure. It's crazy, all of the guests that we have actually had on here. I mean, with all the introductions and me and Gabe, just so you guys know, we've been talking about this, but we're going to create a really cool reel and that we can watch and go back to just some of the really kick-ass moments. So
yeah, this was 2 years ago. This was I think it was literally like, I think right after 2020, like 2021. It was like January or February of 20.
We've gained so much respect, you know, the Lucasfilm, you know, we got a lot of industry artists that I know for a fact that watch our show that we've been told that we don't talk about, but it's just an honor. It's respect, you know.
Some of the emails that we sometimes get, I'm like, wow, like
that's awesome.
But yeah, man, no, it's been fun, and this is cool because we probably should, like, next week. You know, obviously it's right before New Year's. We should do a show, kind of going back and showing, you know, some of the the moments. And look, even if it's me just going through the YouTube and looking for our favorite episodes and kind of scrolling through, because there has been, I mean, obviously it's been over 2 years. Like we've had funny, like, memorable moments. I mean, some really cool ones, and some like, I mean, some friendships that I would never would have
Yeah.
expected. Like, I know, obviously, like our friends, our collector friends, but like we're friends with like Don Post, like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like, Lawrence Noble, and these people
Mhm.
that are just like,
Kurt Kuhn, and we've had, thanks to some people that have collaborated to get him on here, but Roger Christian, that
oh
that
yeah,
was huge, That's
yeah.
funny. McVeigh, you know what I mean? So many cool ones. Oh yeah, hey Marcel, no shit. The roast, I swear to you, I was just thinking about that when we were talking about it. That is hands down my favorite episode was when Jordu Shell just completely roasted Gabe. Dude, that was the best one. And hey, the funny thing about it is Gabe is now a Yoda lover. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, but not
Uh,
necessarily. I'm a Yoda fan still, but
no, come on now. Oh, that's right. You get it because of the lineage.
I get it because of the meaning behind the piece,
That's right. That's right.
not because of Yoda himself. But hey,
For sure.
I'm slowly starting to to become a Yoda fan. I don't know if I'm a Chewie fan yet, but I'll get there eventually.
That's crazy.
Yeah, remember that was like after that whole roast. I'm like, you know what? I'm not a Chewbacca. He's like, oh man.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Yeah. But
Well,
yeah,
man,
probably should do that next week. Kind of take a little stroll down memory lane and see some of the funny, just times. You know what I'd love to see? I want to see that first time we opened up the show to the public. Remember, like when we first added the link in the Collection Wars
yeah, yeah,
group, where we are just like anyone could just jump in, and then we had
yeah.
like
We had like
10 people, like because I think
9 people.
yeah, well, the maximum I think is 10 guests that we could have on the show. Yeah, and we had it all filled up, and I was nervous because I was like, how are we gonna like control who's talking? But everyone was super respectful, and like I thought everyone was gonna be talking over each other, and it worked out great. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we
For
still do
sure.
that. We still do that every
Yeah,
once in a while, and
yeah,
get our friends.
yes.
So, but
That's
yeah,
that's good.
but yeah, let's should we wrap it up? And
Yeah, we can wrap up. Yeah, we're an hour. That was a good one though. But
yeah,
before we wrap up, Gabe, I just want to say to you and everybody out there, I hope you guys genuinely have a Merry Christmas and for sure a Happy New Year. And let's try to remember, like me sometimes, what Christmas is about, and and hug your family and tell them that you love them.
yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. Merry
yeah,
Christmas, Michael, and obviously I'll probably talk to you before then,
yeah,
but yeah, and Merry Christmas to everybody, and we'll see each other before New Year's.
yep,
We'll see each other next week, and
yep.
yeah, should be fun.
Look forward to it. Well, everybody, thank you for your Saturday. Have a great, hopefully longer weekend for you, and we'll see you guys on the next video.